We all know, obviously, that minimum wage is below the poverty level. There's a poverty and inequality crisis in this country. I think a lot of the things that Jeff Mulligan talked about are really vital, but I also think that there are some things that are so basic um, that they really do have to be the defining and driving politics of this modern era. And I would obviously go far beyond a minimum wage. I go to a living wage, and I think we should start with some basic of like nobody should be earning less than, say, $22 an hour as just a number that would actually put people not just slightly above the poverty wage, but like if you're working any job, you should be, okay. You really should not have to worry, no matter where you live, how many kids you have. But according to a new study in the New York Times, if the minimum wage had grown at the same rate as the earnings of the top 1% of Americans, the federal wage floor would be more than triple than the current minimum of $7.25. Instead, the minimum wage has been lower than the poverty wage ever since 1982. We've not gotten the minimum wage above the poverty wage since 1982. Now, moving forward, since racial minorities are overrepresented, this is back taken from the study. Since racial minorities are overrepresented among the minimum wage workforce, raising the minimum wage to just $10.10 would lift 3.5 million people of color out of poverty. Now, of course, this massive wage disparity is a major problem holding back the recovery because of harming purchasing power. The study goes on that if the minimum wage had gone up at the same rate as 1% earners, it would be at $22.62 per hour, 212% higher than the current wage floor. Now, Edward Luce, who writes for the Financial Times, says, he begins his column, he says that higher minimum wage is the tonic America needs, is the title of his column. And I'll do this really quickly. We mentioned this, but we didn't cover this. He says, imagine you receive the following note from your boss. Try to eat 2 small meals instead of 1 big one. Sell your unopened holiday gift on eBay for cash, and please stop complaining. It's bad for your stress levels. This is what Burger chain McDonald's suggested in a memo to employees last week. We know about the food drive for workers in Walmart. And we all know that this affects all of us because the downward trajectory of wages and the attitude of employment as something completely exploitable and completely expendable has implications for every sector you work in, no matter what your education level, no matter what your earning capacity. So we're all in this together, even if you don't want to care about people who are being ruthlessly exploited and grinded down like this. It matters for you. And it matters for this whole recovery because how many millions of people are working full-time and can't afford anything? And how many companies are, in addition to grinding the life out of people in ways that would make no difference to the profit margins, covering themselves by extracting from the public sector? Obviously, a number of states have passed minimum wage increases recently, whether through ballot measures or in California, the legislature passed it, Jerry Brown signed it. I think that raising the wage, and obviously the amazing breakthrough in Seattle, I think that raising the minimum wage and the concept of a living wage is, to me, is the core domestic political organizing principle that we need to get behind. Nothing is simpler. It's not just a political winner. It's economic winner. It's basic ethics. And it's so glaringly obvious that if anybody's in a position of arguing against a wage increase, and sure, you can play around if you're talking about, some small grocery shop with 5 people, whatever. I'm already hear all the silly libertarian counterexamples, but any major company making the profits that they make, grinding their workforce like this, it's morally wrong, it's economically disastrous, and it is just the most overriding no-brainer of everybody in America with any type of interest in the future viability of this country and well-being needs to get behind this issue immediately. And, Financial Times is getting behind it. It's time to move on that.